Hello again, Steve here to weigh in on the Trump animal comment. If you're wondering why I'm looking down, looking over here and so on, it's because I'm trying to get a little bit of accuracy going here with these comments to make sure that I'm commenting on something that I'm referencing in this case. So anyways, the first thing I would have to say is that he is in some ways correct in making the comment, and I'll get to that as to why I think that's true. The next thing is, but the first thing I want to preface this with is it's almost laughable how ridiculous the left looks when they go hysterical on almost everything Trump says. And, you know, I say almost funny if it wasn't dangerous, because the evidence of where the left leads humanity if allowed to continue. But the reason I say it's kind of funny is because the left, it doesn't matter what he says, they will go off on a tangent, pulling their hair out almost, because they got no grounding, really. I mean, other than just they want power. It's a fight at all costs. In fact, Hillary Clinton, who's sort of the poster child of the current leftist movement, you might say, the neoliberal, massive corporate warmongering agenda that they have going on. She wrote a thesis on one of her degrees, I forget which one it is, but anyways, where she did some research on Saul Alinsky, and her, if I'm to quote it right, the name of her paper was The Left, no wait a minute, it was something about the fight. It's called There Is Only the Fight. So this is about a fight. So it doesn't matter if you're in a war, your enemy is doing no good whatsoever, right? No matter what they're saying. And also it's really funny because to people who are sane in this debate, I would say, or try to be sane at least, the left look like hypocrites. But they're not actually hypocrites, because if you got no principles, you got nothing to be hypocritical about. It's just mammalian or reptilian desire to get what you want. There's no right or wrong in how you get it. You just get it. If somebody is in your way, you got to do what you can to knock that person out of the way, which is, and Trump personifies the liberated man, right? The entrepreneurial man kind of thing. And that is a huge problem, the biggest problem for the left. That's why it's such a war against men for many, many years. And all authoritarians are, by the way. If you look through history, whenever an authoritarian would take over a conquered land or whatever, the first thing they do is kill the men, right? Because the men are always a threat to the authoritarians, because the men are the authority of their small nation, their family or whatever. And when you in order to conquer that family, you have to get rid of the man or neuterize the man somehow. Sometimes they just castrate him, cut his dick off or whatever, but turn him into a slave. But you have to do that, and that's the attempt by the left right now, is to kill the men, and or take them out of their power. And Donald Trump is man personified, right? Uberman kind of thing. Whether you agree with him or not, it's pretty hard to discount that. So coming back to Donald Trump's comment on animal. Well, another thing that's funny about the left is, once again, this is an example. It's a blatant example of how the hypocrisy is blind to them, because without principles, there is no such thing as hypocrisy. But for the longest time, they were saying that humanity is just animals, anyways. That's, animals have sex whenever they want. We should have sex whenever they want. Animals don't get married. Animals kill their young if they're not necessary. We can kill our young, and we're just animals, right? And so, but then as soon as Donald Trump says that somebody might be an animal, Donald Trump says somebody's an animal, and it's completely, it's like I say, it's laughable, but it's serious, right? At the same time, the consequences could be very serious. So back to the animal quote. Okay, first of all, I just wanted to look up, animal versus human being. So human being, if you say that every man is a human being, or every man or woman's a human being, we got to look at the word human being. First of all, human in its origin anyways, is an adjective for being. So all creatures and all of us are animals. That's the first thing. The left was in telling us that we're animals, and that's true. Man is an animal. But every animal has a characteristic. So we're also beings. But so are the dogs and the birds and everything. They're all beings as well. But we don't ascribe human being to the other creatures typically. And the reason for that is because if you look at the origin of the word human, the first origin, the etymology, is an adjective. And it comes from the Latin and Old French and whatever, but it's referring of man. So it's something of man typically, right? And then it says humane, philanthropic, kind, gentle, polite, learned, refined, civilized. Is a dog civilized? Is an earthworm civilized? Is a cat gentle when it catches a gopher? It's these are characteristics ascribed to man, right? Men and women, philanthropic, kind, and whatnot. Certainly, other animals can be kind at times, but not so much self-directed as easily. So when we're talking about MS-13, which, by the way, I watched that interview before this whole thing burst. I saw it actually on the live stream, a little clip of it, and I heard Donald Trump mention it, and it never occurred to me that he was talking about anything else other than MS-13. They were literally talking about MS-13 with this woman sheriff somewhere in California, and Donald Trump said those people are animals, basically. I never thought for a second that he was referring to anybody else. So the idea that the left, it's very telling of the left, really. It's the telling of the left. It's like, I have this going joke with my wife sometimes, she'll say, don't put that dirty whatever on the table. And I'll say to her kind of jokingly, what did you say, put that dirty whatever on the table? And I just leave out the don't. Is they just leave things out of the sentence. And then they try to sell propaganda to the masses, right? And for the longest time it worked. It still is working to a great extent. So anyway, I never thought otherwise, but they ran with it, right? And so that's the first thing I would say is, if we're going to ascribe these characteristics, humane, philanthropic, kind, gentle, polite, and so on, to a being, then when you have people who are acting in a heinous way, then that's not a human being. It's a man or woman, and I've said it before, that all human beings are men or women. But not all men and women are human beings. Seriously. And a lot of us, maybe universally, all of us act in times in not human manners. There are times we do not act philanthropic, kind, gentle, polite, learned, refined, and civilized. At times we act very barbaric. And in those times we're not acting as humans, I would say. We're acting like animals because we are animal also. We're like animal with a super pack on top of this human aspect, this divine or godly or whatever, this rational being on top of that. And that's the human characteristic, I would say. And anyway, so what's next here? So it's actually, and the next thing that I was going to mention was how there was this motto that came up in the news, in the so-called news. The motto was, what is it? Mata, roba, viola, controla. It means kill, steal, rape, control. So I checked this, and I can put some of these links in the description. Checkyourfact.org, .com rather, checkyourfact.com. I don't know if this is a very accurate site, no idea, but I just thought I would put it in there as at least a point of commentary. And it says in there that gang members frequently use machetes, knives, baseball bats in gang attacks, sometimes dismembering victims. I don't know about you, but does that sound like a kind, gentle, polite, learned, refined, or civilized way of behaving? I don't think so. And it's not even really animal. It's pretty sadistic, although I did see a cat behaving that way, not without the baseball bat, with its teeth only, with a gopher once. So animals have that characteristic to play around for fun. I don't know if these guys are playing around for fun. I think it has to do with the control aspect to gain their turf. or whatever, right? And now there was these two guys, Dudley and Lopez. I believe they were talking to this gang member because they looked like in that article they were trying to discredit Trump for having used this motto, because they say it's not actually a motto, but when they interviewed these guys, they say, yeah, some guys use this, some guys talk about it, but it's not a central tenet, right? Because authoritarians always think in terms of central tenets, that an organization is run by a strict, across the board constitution or whatever, but it's not the case very often. Anyway, so they were trying to make the case that they don't actually rape. And so they're interviewing this guy, and he talks about how, first of all, this guy, this gang member somewhere, he's talking about how it's not actually our motto. He says, it must have been a couple of drunk guys who thought that it sounded right and that it was somewhat of a catchphrase. So they're using the word catchphrase rather than motto. So and so on, right? And then they're talking about how they don't actually rape. So they actually have they also had another catchphrase here called La Mara with shotgun, where they would tattoo a picture of a shotgun on them. And, okay, where does it say here? Okay, in reference to rape, indicates that kill, rape, control is not a formal instruction to MS-13. So they say it's not a formal instruction, but that doesn't discount that it's an instruction. It's or an implied instruction. According to Dudley and Lopez, the gang says that it prohibits rape of female companions and relatives. But it doesn't say that they prohibit rape and of their enemies. It's family members and companions. And that bragging about rape could get a gang member killed. Well, yeah, because you don't want to let the authorities or the police or outside of the gang organization know that this is what you're doing. I mean, bad people don't want to necessarily go around and tell everybody that they're being really, really bad, right? So, and in fact, that's probably worse than an animal trait. But it certainly is not a human trait, and this is what I'm making the point of. I guess my main point is that if human is about being philanthropic, kind, gentle, polite, learned, refined, civilized, if the behavior is actually cutting people up into little pieces to threaten them so much that they don't want to do anything against you, that's not human. That's not a human trait. That's not that you wouldn't put that adjective in front of that being. So now, if you take away the human, you're just being. And all animals are being. So where does that leave us? That leaves people who behave like that as not human. Yes, they're man. But what is man? Man is a rational animal. Okay, so they're rational animals. They're animals. They're rational animals. But they're not human beings. They're not human animals when they're behaving this way. And to support, like these Pelosi's and so on, who want to support these people, who say that they should be ascribed the term human being, they're being completely false, completely disingenuous, and I don't think they believe it for a minute themselves. They're being very partisan, and it tells us pretty much everything we need to know about these people. And I guess the lesson here is once again a lesson of fake news and propaganda, and how they want to keep on, and how it can get so bad that they can even lose their basic fan base, because there's always a tipping point. You can go so far in this craziness that people say, okay, no, this is enough. When you start supporting heinous people who are acting completely inhumanely, but you want to ascribe human to them, no, that's gone too far. So I think it was Mark Twain once said, if you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you read the newspaper, you're misinformed. So, because people say, oh yeah, Steve, but he's just joking. Well, that's the basis of humor, isn't it? The basis of any real humor is that there's an element of truth to it. And this whole fake news, which is mostly directed at the mainstream media, they started it, right? I remember they started it before Trump was elected. They started going after the internet people and trying to discredit them. And then it got turned around on them. And now millions and millions of people just see them as completely fake news for what they are. And it's just another example of, how low they'll stoop. The socialist-controlled mainstream media, that they will support heinous people, extremely blatantly heinous people, to further their agenda. And their agenda is the fight. What was it? The Hillary Clinton's there is only the fight. They know it. Men are in their way. Men who want freedom. And freedom is the antithesis of tyranny, which is what the mainstream media is in support of. And when they won't talk about Tommy Robinson being thrown in jail after 5 hours with no trial whatsoever for 13 months into a death pit, perhaps. We know everything we need to know about them. So yeah, people who act in heinous ways are, I would say, worse than animals. And technically, Trump is correct, according to the left's own tenets for years and years and years, that we're just animals anyways. And that's what they used to say so often. And also, you can't ascribe the term human to the being who would just butcher people, because they're not. They're not philanthropic, kind, gentle, polite, learned, refined, or civilized at all, if they're behaving this way. Steve here, getting great chatting. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share, and comment in the box below, and we'll talk again soon. Bye for now.